All right, so let's talk about the assignment for this week. So we're going to close the sprint for the that we're currently working on, and we're going to start a new sprint. And the focus of the sprint that's coming up will be functional testing. Right? We're going to implement a couple of features. The features are going to be mostly or entirely on the server side, Java side. So no new front end development. It's going to be just Java, and we're going to be implementing some unit tests that are going to validate these algorithms, these new algorithms I'm going to be working on. Now, in previous sprints, we've worked on implementing some of the data model that represented users and services and categories, and also some questions that folks answered to these services, right? So we're going to be using these models. We're going to add a couple more to this data model that's going to represent providers being able to configure some of the costs and discounts that they might provide for a service. So, for instance, if you ask me to walk a dog every month, I might charge you maybe $100, for the whole day, or babysit, or whatever you ask me to do. But if you ask me to do it every week, I might give you a discount. Or if you ask me to do it every single day, I might give you an even bigger discount, right? But if you ask me to do it on a weekend, maybe I'm actually going to give you a fee. I'm going to charge you a fee, right? Or if you ask me to do it on holidays, or if you ask me to do it as an emergency, right? I might actually charge up jack up the price. Yes. So we're gonna work on some of these features. Also. Depending on the answers that providers gave when they were configuring their services, like this maybe somebody that cleans houses, how big a house and how many bedrooms and whatnot. Depending on those answers, as folks search for these providers, right? We need to pattern match whatever the client is looking for, and pattern match against the providers that match those criteria. Yes, so we'll work on that as well. Okay. So these are the requirements. We have these three teams. One team is going to be working on being able to calculate the discounts for a particular service. One of the teams is going to work on the fees that a provider will charge, depending on if it's a holiday, if it's on the weekend, if it's an emergency. And then Team 3 is going to work on calculating the list of providers that match a criteria. Okay? Now, this is the first assignment that we're going to give you the opportunity to decide which team works on which use case. Right? So as an organization, you'll meet, right, and perhaps you might consider certain things to be a little harder than others. Okay? Perhaps for instance, one of the challenges between these two teams is that they're both working on the same object, the estimate. So there might be some communication between these two, which will be challenging. Yes? Right? So that's challenging. But this one, Team 3, has a challenge that is a fairly new a feature, right? That has to go across services and the users. But it can work entirely independent of the other two. Right? So again, I'll leave it up to you. Perhaps one of the teams might be a little more senior, a little more knowledgeable of some of the stacks, right? And so you might decide to which way you want to go. Right, so I'll leave that up to you how you want to break that out. Okay. Now this document assumes this distribution. Right, so all throughout the document, it assumes this particular distribution. But again, you're free to choose which way you want to break it out. Okay. Again, as we progress throughout the semester, you'll be given more and more leeway on how is it that you want to arrange yourselves. Right. It'll be less and less hand-holding. All right. So the narratives down here describe each one of these use cases. Right. What the requirements are. For instance, for the first use case, which is providers can configure the estimate discounts. They want to be able to give their customers discounts. Yes? If you ask me to walk your dog every day, I might give you a bigger discount if you ask me to walk it just once a week. All right? And the discount could be maybe a percentage of what I normally charge, or it could be a one-time flat fee that I give you. Maybe, all right? So and also providers need to be able to configure whether they charge by the hour, whether they charge by the day, whether they charge by the week, whether they charge by the month, whether they charge by the year. And this depends on the type of engagement, right? If it's a long-term engagement where I'm a software engineer, I might charge you by the month, right? If this is a more of a freelance, right? I might charge you by the week. Yes. If it's something that you want me to do something more sporadically, I might charge you by the day, right? Or even by the hour. Make sense? So providers need to be able to configure what their rate is, what their base price is, and whether it's daily, hourly, weekly, monthly, yearly. They need to be able to configure these kinds of things. Yes? Right? Also, they need to be able to say, these are the discounts. Right? If it's daily, this is the discount. If it's hourly, this is the discount. If you ask me to do this at a particular frequency, these are the types of discounts that I will give you. If you do a subscription, right, depending on your subscription, these are the types of discounts that I'm willing to provide you. For the fees, that's team 2. So where the team 1 is working on subtracting from the estimate, from the total estimate, team 2 is working to add to the estimate, to the total estimate, right? So discounts subtract from the estimate, whereas fees add to the estimate. Yes? Right? And the fees can also be they're also based on the flat rate, right? Whether it's I charge by the hour, I charge by the day, I charge by the week. And so the fees can either be a percentage on that, or it could be a flat fee that I can add onto that. Yes? And also, depending on when are you asking me to deliver the service. Right? If you ask me to deliver the service on a weekday, maybe I won't charge you any fee. But if you ask me to deliver the same service on a weekend, then I will charge you the fee. Or if you ask me to deliver the same service on a holiday, then maybe I will have a 20% surcharge. Right? Or if you ask me this is an emergency, drop what you're doing, come and help me, I might charge you an even higher surcharge. Make sense? Right. So fees add to the estimate, whereas discounts subtract from the estimate. Okay. And here's the third team is going to work on something entirely different. They like to be able to calculate, right? Given the questions that the providers have answered, saying that. I only clean houses between 1,000 and 2,000 square feet. I only clean houses between 3 and 4 rooms, and I don't do pets. Okay? Having to answer these questions, each provider will answer differently these questions. Yes? Right? Create an algorithm that, given a criteria from a user that is looking for providers, and that says, my house is 3,500 square feet. I have 4 bedrooms, and I have cats. Right? Based on that criteria, search the space of providers, and score them how they do based on the criteria, that's the search criteria. Yes? I might have 10 folks that meet your criteria perfectly. Right? I might have another 20 that meet most of the criteria, but miss out on one of the criteria, right? And then some other folks, some 50 other providers that only meet one of your criteria. Yes? So score all the providers based on that criteria, and then give me back an array, a list of the providers in ranked by the score on how they ranked based on that on my criteria. Make sense? All right. So that's a third team. Now to support these requirements, this is the object model that I'm suggesting, right? And you're free to modify this if you prefer a different data model. If you're using this data model, you'll realize that some of the requirements cannot be implemented with this data model. Okay, you say, wait a minute, it's missing this, that, or the other. Okay, it's totally fine to use this data model and just focus on what's listed here. Meaning, not every single thing that is listed in the requirements needs to be implemented. Okay, at a minimum, it's what's here. Okay, at a minimum. If you'd rather modify this slightly different, you're free to do so. Maybe it's missing a field here and there. You're free to add so. Just assign a design story to somebody, right? To work on adding a field here and there, or maybe an additional class, and document your changes in the model as a new class diagram and attach it to the story. If instead you're happy with this data model, you're welcome to it, and use it as is. So for the first two teams, there's one class here that represents the estimate that a provider is generating for a particular service that they provide. They can generate many estimates, and depending on for who and whatnot. And so this estimate has the resulting estimate. This estimate is what you're going to calculate. You're going to calculate that estimate based on so many discounts or so many fees. Right? So the estimate will be the result of adding together a base price minus all the discounts plus all the fees. Yes? And the base price will be based on a frequency, meaning I charge $100 an hour, $1,000 a day, or whatever, or $75,000 a year, whatever the base price is by the base frequency. Whether the service is a subscription service or it's a one-time thing, right? If it's a subscription, then we can configure the subscription frequency. Right? The subscription frequency is, I want you to walk my dog every day, every week, every month, on a holiday, on a weekend, right? And these are all the subscriptions, right? Saying what is the discount for what frequency? Discount for what frequency? And whether this discount is either a flat number, an absolute value, or so if it's flat, this is an absolute value. If this is false, then by default this is a percentage. Right? By default, this is a percentage of the base price. Yes? Same thing for the delivery fee. When do you want me to deliver this? Do you want me to deliver this on a weekend, on a holiday, on an emergency? When do you want me to deliver this? Right? And so I have different fees for the different frequencies. So if it's on a holiday, this is what I charge. If it's on a weekend, this is what I charge. If it's an emergency, this is what I charge. Right? If it's on a weekday, maybe it's 0 fees, something like that. Right? All right, so that's for the first two teams. The third team, they need to be able to represent a search criteria generated by a client that is searching for providers that provide these services. And the criteria is a collection of multiple questions and answers. Right? They answered that for how big your house is, it's 4 rooms. And how many square feet? It's 3,500 square feet. And do you have pets? Yes, I have pets. Right. So it's a collection of criteria, which is then going to be used for pattern matching that answered the same questions, but they have ranges, right? They have true, false. Yes, I do pets. I don't do pets. And the ones that match are calculated and scored so that we can know which ones we can return. Okay? Make sense? Any questions so far? All right. All right. As all assignments, we have an organization level task, a certain organization level task, a couple of team tasks, and individual tasks. The organization level tasks. First, we're going to ask you to, for each one of these, for each organization level task, team task, and individual task, to create one JIRA story and assign it to the TA, and then use that JIRA story to record all deliverables, right, in that story. Okay, so if you modify the SRS document, attach it to that story. If you please provide all links to your Git repositories, all the links to your Heroku projects that are deployed, please attach them to that story. Okay, these are all organization level things. And then assign it to the TA to the sprint, right? So add it to the sprint so that TA knows that they can go there and verify the SRS document, go in and check out your GitHub repository, check out your Heroku deployments and whatnot. Okay. For the team level tasks, again, create a one JIRA story per team. So each team creates a team level JIRA story, assign it to the TA, and there you're going to document everything by the team, right? So for instance, if you created an epic story, right, attach the link to that epic here. If you created brand new stories, please provide a link to these stories as part of the description of this story. If you have a particular part of the application that you want to demo at a particular part in Heroku, or a particular path, copy that path and paste it here so that you can see, well, here's my search, here's my discounts, and here are my fees, right? If there were a user interface, but there isn't. What else? If you don't like the class diagram, if you want to create a different class diagram, feel free to create a separate one point story to work on redesigning that class diagrams, making it more accurate to your liking. If you're okay with a data model, just leave it. You don't have to. So it's an optional story. As a team, we're asking you to create one use case, fully document that use case, right? So you fully document how is it that a provider would create a discount. How would they create a discount, right? They would navigate to the service. They would provide the discount for the frequency and how much it is. For if it's a 1 hour thing, this is my discount. If it's a weekly hour thing, this is my discount. If it's a daily thing, this is a discount, right? So describe the use case. Same thing for the fees. Describe the use case fully and add it to the SRS document, I believe. For each one of the use case, please come up with at least 2 functional requirements. Right. So for instance, I need to be able to add the discount. I need to be able to change the frequency. I need to be able to set whether it's a flat or it's a percentage. I need to be able to do all these things, right? I need to be able to answer the questions for searching the providers. And for each one of them, for each functional test, what tests would you create? Create 3 tests for each one, right? So for instance, if how would you verify that the calculation for the discount is correct, right? If given that you have these types of discounts, whether it's flat, whether it's subscription, it's not subscription, right? Again, you might need to create a table, right, where you specify all the different possibilities, and then have a truth table that then tells you what the discounts might be based on the rules. Yes? Right? So identify 3 test cases. And here I give you some examples of what those tests might be. Somebody's going to have to calculate the discount. Somebody's going to have to implement that algorithm. Right? Maybe you'll assign it to a particular team member. It says, you implement the actual algorithm. We're going to implement the test cases, the unit tests. Yes? So somebody's going to have to implement the discount algorithm based on the price, the rate, whether it's subscription, whether it's the frequency of that subscription. And then some test cases, examples of them might be that, does it calculate whether it's flat or a percentage? Does that work? Does it reflect the fact that this is a subscription? And does it work for the various frequencies? Right? So you need to create tests for all these edge cases. Same thing for team 2, right? They need to be able to calculate the fees based on a price, whether it's flat or percentage, when it's being delivered, whether it's a weekend, holiday, or emergency. Also, somebody's going to need to implement the actual calculation of the estimate. Notice that the estimate is the subtraction of the discounts, but is the addition of the fees. Somebody's going to have to calculate that, right? And create tests for that. And finally, the service, they need to be able to, somebody's going to have to implement the algorithm that compares, right? Compares the answers from the criteria, compares them with the answers by all the providers, and then ranks them, and then sorts them by ranking order, right? And things that you might need to test, whether they're sorted correctly, whether it's the correct number that are returned, whether the ranks are calculated correctly, right? There's lots of tests in there. All right, so for sprint planning, I would say each team member should have at least 3 stories. And I give you an example of what those stories might look like, where you have somebody is implementing the test, the algorithm, the actual algorithm, and then implementing maybe 2 tests, whereas the other 2 might be implementing just 3 tests each. Okay. Now I'm giving you a leeway here that as a team, implement 6 to 8 tests, right? Depending if you have something in your backlog from previous sprints, maybe you'll only implement 6. If you don't have anything from the backlog or from the previous sprints, then go ahead and implement 8. Right? This one assumes that you have nothing from a previous sprint, and you can implement 8 tests. 2 by the first team member, and then 3 by the other team members. This is just an example, a suggestion, right, on how you want to break this out. It's up to you how you actually want to break this out. All right. Also, so any news stories, please provide links to the team level JIRA story for the TA, so the TA can go and keep track of all these news stories. Also, when you have your Scrum meeting, please provide the link to the Scrum meeting in the JIRA story, so that the TA can go and look at the Scrum meetings. Yes. In particular, keep track of each other. Right. There might be that this team always breaks the build and is causing the rest of the other teams to kind of have to wait on fix the overall. So record all these things, or there might be a teammate that is never shows up for the meetings. All right, record all these things in the Scrum team meetings. Right, the TAs are going to keep track of these things. If you don't record any of these, we won't be able to help you out. As an individual, create a story. As you personally create a JIRA story. Again, assign it to TA, and And in there, include things such as your PRs, any PR that you've created that for folks to merge. Again, any concerns, any challenges that you're facing, please record these things at the different levels, either individually, as a team, or as an organization. If you're finding any challenges, if you're one thing that I suggest here is that as an organization, meet together. If you find that there's a recurring issue that you can solve as a team, right? Come together and agree on a solution, right? And make a commitment, and perhaps assign to somebody as the owner of that issue, right? They don't have to solve it themselves, but at least there's an owner, and it keeps track of perhaps trying to coordinate amongst each other and try to solve a particular issue. That somebody keeps merging directly to master, or somebody keeps is not doing a code review. Please make a commitment to the team to improve the quality of the process. Okay. Real quick, here's an example on the algorithm for the team 1. So here's an example estimate, and the estimate is a base price might be $750 daily. There is a subscription, and the subscription frequency is a daily subscription. And the provider might have configured these types of discounts. 30% if it's daily, 20% if it's weekly, 10% if it's monthly, or 0 if it's yearly. And based on this, the discount comes out to be $250, and the overall estimate is $525. Yes? For the fees, it's the same thing. Whereas here you have the delivery, they want me to provide this service during the holidays, so there's a 20% charge for the holidays, and that comes out to be $150 and $900 total estimate. For the search folks, here's a house cleaning service, and the questions for the house cleaning service are, how many rooms, do you have pets, how big is your house? You have a whole bunch of questions for that service, and different providers answer differently. So provider A said that my minimum and max number of rooms is 2 to 3, and I don't do pets. Whereas provider B says I can do houses between 3 and 4 rooms, and I'm okay with pets. And provider C is 4 to 5 rooms, and I do pets. So based on a particular criteria of somebody that has 3 rooms and does have pets, the overall score for the providers is as follows. So provider B meets 2 of the criteria, provider A only meets 1 of the criteria, and provider C meets no criteria. Right? So this is a scoring that allows me to come up with a list of the providers in that order. Make sense? Right? And finally, down below I have the deliverables, which is basically going over every single point in the document and listing them here in the deliverables. All right?